Boom, ha. And welcome to the first principle. We're going to talk through A players. These are the people that make you money. These are the people that add value, and these are the people that your clients really want to work with. They hit the ground running. They are phenomenal hires. And if you are a challenger agency, you want to be the best of the best. You want to deliver on your promises to your clients. You need A players. This is the Premier League. There is no room for second best. Your clients expect performance, they expect results, and they are paying you to deliver. Going and hiring, the cheapest talent you can find to stick within your budgets and make sure that you make a profit is not delivering on your agency promise. You need to make sure that your talent is the best of breed. And the way you scale is by getting good people and training them. Now, does that mean you need to go and shop at the highest price tag possible? No. Does it mean you need to go shop at the lowest price tag possible? No. But there is a room in between of understanding, your size of agency, your appetite for growth, and making sure that you get the right person at that stage, which fundamentally is your A player. It's someone who you can feel proud of. It's someone you can put in front of clients. It's someone who can run things while you go on holiday. And these hires generally might be 15 to 20% more than what you can currently afford at that stage. So they are growth, hires. They require a level of risk, of appetite to actually move to the next stage. So I'm going to start with a little bit of a story of my own agency, and hopefully some of this will help you, see where you could possibly, borrow some of these learnings. Maybe you've had a different experience, but to me, generally, this has been, the consistent way of doing things. If you want to grow quickly and fast, it requires a specific type of person. Now, you might find there are alternative options, like maybe you have extremely good operating processes, or you're in a niche vertical and it is possible to scale up using, more junior people, or maybe even people who've never done PPC before. So I'm not saying this is the only way this happens. I'm just going to tell you the story of my experience, and hopefully there'll be some learnings from you. Great. So yeah, we started the agency a little over 7 years ago and started off doing hybrid of website and freelance work for like building e-com sites with a little bit of PPC. I had just left a PPC agency and thought that we're going to offer, a holistic end-to-end solution where we'll build your website, run ads, and then charge you, on a percentage of profit or on an overall cost per lead, and we're going to manage the entire environment. That was the general idea, and it was great in concept, easy to win pitches, and very easy to get work because, such a good value offering. However, as time went, we realized that certain small businesses either didn't have, a service that could scale, or they didn't have, a product that could scale within a market. And a lot of them, had already reached the limits of that small business, whether they were selling to a local geographical catchment, or they just had a service-driven business and they only had so much time in the day. Running something like that meant if we do our job really well, they're going to reach a level of capacity where they can't grow any further. And there's a lot of effort and time put into that. So eventually we decided to double down and just focus on, paid PPC, specifically Google Ads, and we charged, stupidly low fees at the time to get some clients. And we did a percentage of spend deal, which was higher than maybe you would expect in a UK or US market. And in South Africa, it was relatively, a good pitch because people would say, hey, we're going to grow with you, and as your ad spend grows, we're going to earn more. And it made sense because most of these clients were starting out at a really low base, so they were quite happy to do it. And some of them had never ever tried, Google Ads before, was quite new to the market, and being a third world country, there was a lot of room to grow from that point of view. So we did that and constantly won new business and grew from there. Most of the retainers, were doubling budgets within, 3 to 6 months as we just set up accounts correctly, mostly using search to grow and starting to focus on, slightly more disruptive startups in the, financial sector space. And we found some good traction there. We eventually reached a point where we were starting to have conversations that felt quite, enterprise. We had an offer to actually, had an investor come into the business. and things started, looking up. But we were essentially 2 full-time, founder, co-founder working on the business, and now we needed, additional resources. So we started roping in this network of freelancers, and for some reason, we were very focused on, kind of the stay-at-home mom or individual who has some capacity, but, could never really go full-time, but they just wanted some form of extra income. So that was the, target hire that we were making. So we attempted to do that for quite a period of time. Call that freelancers if you must, but it was just hard to get a high capacity individual for a short period of time, fractionally throughout the week, and build, a team in that manner. Over time, we realized it raised a lot of challenges because the team wasn't always on. We had to brief things really well, and overall, it was actually taking us more time to put together the briefs or to put together the training documents. And then, these individuals had other things on in their life, so they wouldn't necessarily, stay through for the long term. So eventually we decided to make a first hire, and we knew that we wanted to get someone, phenomenal, someone who could really scale things, to the next level. So we really, pushed what we could afford at the time, and we negotiated with this individual to say, hey, we're going to offer you, something that's close to maybe what you're earning now, but there's a lot of opportunity to grow. This is our growth historically. This is where we're at. And, we'll do things like, pay for your cell phone bill as well, pay for your, split your home internet. We can, expense that through the business, which is legally possible in South Africa. So all these different things we did to try and, add to the package to make it really compelling, work from home, no office hours, like very, very flexible. So we got a really good individual, phenomenal, probably one of the best hires we ever made. And within, I think it was 4 months, we basically doubled the revenue of the business. Now, getting a senior hire means that you can hand over accounts, you can make them client facing. They are probably and should be better than you at certain things. If they're not better than you at the mundane, then you've made a wrong hire. If they're not leaving you impressed with the work that they've done, you've made a wrong hire from that point of view. My thoughts is that the first hires you make need to be phenomenal, to buy you enough time to do that. What this did is it drastically just scaled our profitability. So we got to a point where we were earning, I don't know what the right metric you would, refer to this as, but essentially if our expenses were 1 apple, our profit was like 1.2 apples, essentially. So we're making more profit than our expenses. It was a phenomenal time in the business. We were able to generate significant amounts of cash very quickly. It's, looking back in hindsight, it's probably the most profitable time we had because we went, for making a player hire and then skipped straight to working on these enterprise clients. We said, look, we've done the small business thing for a while. We know the ins and outs of it, but now that we're hiring people, we want to get A players and we want to do this well. Let's rather, grow from there. This individual that we hired subsequently actually got about 3 or 4 pay increases within, an 18-month period. And we just kept growing, from that point of view. Yes, there was bad work-life balance. Yes, we had, very little routine in how we were working. And we were just saying yes and winning bigger and bigger and bigger accounts as we went. However, this is not necessarily, a module around work-life balance. This is how you scale an agency. And there is still, high levels of outputs that need to happen to get through that stage, to get to the next space. Another little interesting thing that we did to really motivate this, deal to go well is we offered a profit share. We said, hey, there's going to be a percentage of profit that's going to be shared if we make that. And that went well for a season until we got to a point where we started making further hires. In the future years after that, we were in a predicament where we had a lot of extra cash on hand and we wanted to grow the team further because the work-life balance was just out of sync. We were working way too hard and yes, able to store a lot of cash, which was amazing for future things that we did. But the problem was we had no life. We had children coming, new, parents, pretty much all of us. And we realized we want to, change the way that we were working and be able to take, our foot off the gas a little bit and just actually enjoy the fruits of our labor. So the profit share then didn't really make sense because now we started using previous year's profits to really scale up to the point where we're adding more and more team members. Now, I think the mistake we made is we thought, hey, we've got one A player, let's now B players and go from there. I never had enough, time to test this theory, and I can't go back in time. However, if hypothetically I ever started an agency again, I would like to try and just keep hiring A players. Just literally don't stop. Just go, go, go. The return on investment is phenomenal on them. There is literally like very little you can compare to that type of growth. Yes, you might have a negative, cash flow situation for 2 to 3 months, but if you have good reserves, you can, generate enough cash so that then you build momentum, and then the next hire does the same thing. The next hire does the same thing. When you start hiring B players or juniors, which you could argue are maybe C players, you land up in a situation where you now have to, put in more resource and time to actually train them. I do go through this in another module, so I'm not going to talk about it right now too extensively. However, all I can say is if you're in the position to just keep hiring A players, why not? Just keep doing it. Don't get greedy and chase high profit margins in the beginning. If you want to get to the point where I got to eventually, where I was working, 1-2 days a week and able to focus on other things and build, what I know today is ClickTrain, essentially to get to that, place, which is quite privileged, you need to invest. You need to take all the resources and all the cash you have and put that into hiring the best people you can find and partner with them, align with them, get them so motivated that they live, breathe, and, this is their company. They feel like a part of the team. And if you can get that right, you will scale the agency through those, early stages, which is incredibly tough to get through, where you don't have the cash reserves. You can't compete with, the operational capacity maybe larger agencies have, and you want to be disruptive to try and win new business. At that stage, having this elite team with you really feels like you can go and conquer the world. It feels like there is no account too difficult or no problem too, challenging to encounter. So that was the origin story of how we got the agency going. Some statements to close, things for you to think about, and just some, analogies you may have heard. But first one is you get what you pay for. We know this. It's pretty common. It's super true. If you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. That's the truth. There is, no way to, lowball someone if they know their value, they come with a price tag. And understanding that is really useful. And lastly, I want to say, if you're trying to squeeze water from a rock, you have an individual who maybe you've paid a little bit above market rate and you're really trying to get more out of them and it's just not working and it's tough. Like, do yourself a favor, do them a favor, have a conversation, try to figure out a way to, end things amicably and just move on. Like, this thing does not grow because you're a good person. It does not grow because you give people, third, fourth chances. If it does feel like squeezing water from a rock point of view, just end it. Focus on A players, focus on your culture, and things definitely improve from there. Great, so that is principle 1 done. Next up, we're going to be talking through, one last thing, attracting A players. Attracting A players is really interesting. I just remembered we forgot to go through this. Essentially, you need to start building an employer brand. So the way you talk about the company, the way other people talk around the company, and the way you approach certain things is going to help you incredibly when you have that negotiation with that A player, to try to get them to a middle ground where there's a salary negotiation, that is logical and, mature from both parties, and you can find a way forward. Having an employer brand at that point in time is super crucial. Now, I'm not saying that is, free lunches, a dog in the office, a sleeping pod in the office. Yes, those things are nice, but it's really like understanding the culture, understanding why you exist, how you are different, what you are, challenging in the market, your belief systems, how you approach certain things, and understanding when you do actually get to talk to people, what is it that they want? What are they looking for? And it's different for everyone. Someone wants extra time to fetch their child early from school. Someone wants a great, amazing title. Someone wants, a remuneration scheme, that's super complex. If you can figure out a way to be adaptive and unique and individualize, the actual offer to each individual, word will spread. And these key people will talk about your hires, your employees are like your number one branding option to, cultivate the culture that you want and to try and attract other, talent. So if you are struggling with hiring and struggling to attract these type of people, I would say start with those who you have. Start, being a leader that empowers people, being a leader that, is not trying to hold on to people forever, but rather training them so that one day when they leave you, they can go on to do something greater. And if they feel like that, if they feel like you're invested in them as a person and you deal and live that through as your, core belief, and you do that with integrity, people will really rally around you and they literally will go to war for you. So having that team really, inspires other people, and then you start attracting these great hires where they're often on the outskirts. They know about your company, they know what you're doing. Maybe they were at a previous company you worked with, maybe they're a friend of someone who works with you. And as it starts growing, people say, wow, we would love to come and work there. If we got an opportunity, we would definitely take that. And that starts giving you, negotiating power when it comes down to the actual price tag. Now, I'm not saying you're doing this just to lower the price, but these A players come with the price tag that most can't afford, and you're competing with large corporates or international companies, that will poach your staff at a rate which you can not fathom. But most people are not just motivated around money. There are a percentage that just want money, and they're probably not going to be the ones to, embed themselves in your agency. They're probably just using this to job hop to the next, level. But there are those who will commit, and those who will give you, years of their life and literally go to war to follow, the culture and to embody what you're trying to build. And if you can stick to that and you can, hold to that, you'll create a culture where you attract A players. But yes, that is A players. Next up, we're going to talk about onboarding for success. I'll catch you in the other video. Cheers.